Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I'm going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the latest weather warnings, as we still have wind, rain warnings over the next sort of 24 hours, and they transitioned into more snow and ice warnings into Thursday. And that is because we've got this weather front clearing the south with exceptionally cold Arctic air digging in from behind. At the moment, the main hazard will likely be temperatures and the ice for the next couple of days, as we have got generally higher pressure around. But as we head into the weekend, we now have quite a large blanket snow warning issued from Saturday through to Monday for large portions of England, Wales, up towards southern Scotland. Now, this warning has not got a lot of detail with it, and it is issued really as a preliminary warning, and I do suspect it will be cut down, moved, and upgraded in certain areas. From the looks of the latest runs, I suspect an amber warning will be issued for snow somewhere across that region. We'll look at that in detail on the latest UKV, as yes, still having lots of issues with this little low pressure system that does develop through Saturday and Sunday. We have sort of refined its track a lot more in the last 24 to 48 hours, but it still is, there still is a lot of uncertainty whether it tracks through maybe southern Scotland, northern England, or even southern England. And although that doesn't make a massive difference in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to surface conditions, it could be the difference between 10 degrees and rain and 0 degrees and 20 centimetres of snow. And that's only in a 3 or 4 day lead. So yeah, lots of uncertainty still for the weekend. And of course, we'll look through that system on all of the short and medium range runs, of course, as well. Not only have we got snow moving in this weekend, but next week it looks like we're back locked into another exceptionally cold northeasterly or northerly wind. Of course, we can't look at that in too much detail because we can't even sort out the weekend yet. But of course, we'll continue to touch on what those longer term forecasts do have. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which you like and subscribe, remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. And if we start on the live radar for the first day of 2025, we are starting pretty disruptive. We've got this big cold front that is sweeping southwards, squall feature along it, dividing the mild air from the cold air, and it is slowly clearing southwards and eastwards at the moment. It is a slow transition to the very cold air, as that is still positioned across Scotland, but that will be digging in for all over the next 12 hours. And by Thursday morning, most areas will be low single digits, not getting much above freezing. And even during the day tomorrow, not expecting much higher than 1 or 2 degrees. A big temperature drop, 10 degrees for some in the far south. At the moment, further northwards, we do have small little areas of instability, like this area through the central belt, which is producing heavy snow over higher ground. Lower lying areas, still temperatures around 3, 4, 5 degrees, so that means there's a little bit more of mixing and a bit of rain. But in the coming hours, all of this will turn to snow, and there could be further issues. But of course, the ground is still fairly mild. The cold spell is only just starting, so not expecting anything too major at this stage from any winteriness. The biggest hazard, as I said, over the next couple of days will be ice. All of the moisture falling at the moment will freeze in the next day or two. And of course, snow showers will push in from the northeast. But we do have a bit of a ridge of high pressure building in, especially on Friday, which does mean it will be very cold but dry as we do head to the latter part of the working week. If we look at the temperatures around midday, around lunchtime, it is, of course, meant to be the mildest point of the day, and you see the transition from very mild conditions still in the far southeast to cold conditions for much of the rest of England, Wales, and then very cold conditions for Scotland. So you can see that slow transition to that very cold Arctic air moving in, and we'll all be in these lighter blues come this time tomorrow. Exceptionally cold conditions arriving into the 2nd of January. But you can see really where that squall line is. That's the exact dividing line between the very mild air, 10, 12 degrees, and 3 or 4 degrees behind that weather front. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, you can see we've got numerous warnings over the next few days. No warning for Friday. As I said, high pressure is mostly involved, so I think the highest risk we'll see is perhaps a bit of ice and the lower temperatures. Got this wind warning issued that does expire in a couple of hours, so I won't look into this in too much detail, but it's for all those stronger winds along the squall front. And then we've got warnings issued further northwards, snow and ice warning issued for the northern parts of Scotland. expires at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and it's again for all those heavy snow showers packing in 1 to 3 centimetres at low-lying areas, 5 to 10 centimetres across the higher ground. Again, not too unusual for January, if we're being honest, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to get a lot worse over the next week or so. Then we've got this widespread warning for ice that comes into force 4 p.m. this afternoon until 10 a.m. As I said, all of these areas' temperatures will be well below freezing. Maybe a bit more marginal further southwards than this, because we've still got a bit of cloud around, and that's why I think this warning is mainly further northwards. But of course, it's where we've seen a lot of moisture. Still seeing a few wintry showers. We're going to see those temperatures plummet as we head into Thursday morning. Still got those 2 warnings issued, and of course they do expire earliest during the day, and they've got no warnings for the rest of Thursday and for Friday. Nothing. As I said, high pressure is building in, and that means it'll be very cold, but fortunately pretty dry. That all changes into the weekend though. We've got this blanket snow warning that's issued for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Comes into force midday Saturday all the way to 9 a.m. on Monday, so almost a 48-hour warning. Now, we'll stress this. Not all areas within this yellow warning will see significant snow. Somewhere within this will see significant snow, and there probably will be a portion of this region that sees snow turning back to rain, turning back to snow. Some areas that just see a little bit of flurries. We're going to see the whole wide array within this warning. So areas within this warning zone are not equal at this stage, but we've not seen these warnings split out. Upgrades are not made, because we still have uncertainty in the models, which we'll look at in a minute. But within this area, heavy snow will cause some disruption over the weekend. You see, outbreaks of rain spreading northeastwards later on Saturday, overnight to Sunday, will be preceded by a spell of snow on its northern flank. While there is a bit of uncertainty as to how far north this may spread, how long snow will last, significant snow accumulations are possible, especially but not exclusively on hills. Currently, parts of the Midlands, Wales and Northern England are most at risk, where 5+ centimetres quite widely, but with perhaps as much as 20 to 30 centimetres. Because you can see here, they're saying at least 5 centimetres, but as much as 20 to 30, which again just highlights the amount of uncertainty that there is. And there'll be some stronger winds and some lying snow. Milder air will attempt to move northwards, so there could be some freezing rain, especially in the southern area. And if the milder air is able to spread more northwards, snow in southern parts of the warning area will be relatively short-lived before turning to rain. As you can see here, it's quite likely that the warning area with the start and end times will be refined over the coming days as confidence increases in the areas most likely to be impacted. Very low likelihood, medium impact. As I said, from the looks of the latest runs that we'll run through in a minute, do suspect an amber warning will be issued somewhere. At the moment, probably favoured parts of northern Wales, the Midlands into northern England, but could be slightly further southwards, and it even could be slightly further northwards as well. Now, do go over to the latest UKV. Before we run through this, of course, the UKV is one of the best models, and it's one that we look at mostly for our short-range forecasts. It's the one that Met Office base majority of their warnings off, not exclusively. Of course, if the UKV is completely array compared to other models, then of course the Met Office will take that into account. But generally, the UKV is the one that you see on the Met Office videos, their forecasts, and of course on the app. And it does go into their warnings. But today, the UKV, I must stress, is slightly further southwards than the majority of the other runs. Not massively, but maybe 50 miles, which does make a massive difference in this scenario. So when we look at this, it is actually going to show a lot of snow in the south, especially southern England. But I must stress that at the moment, we'll look at the other runs in a minute, they are producing that heavier snow, maybe 50 miles to 100 miles further northwards. Doesn't mean that the UKV is wrong, just means at the moment the UKV is a little bit out of favour. You can see through the rest of today, snow continues to push into the north, mostly in the form of convective showers, but not expecting anything too massive, especially as we head through Thursday evening. It starts to get cut off and moves more towards the North Sea, as we do see a little ridge of high pressure building in. Lots of clear skies, a bit of heavier snow there maybe for Friday morning. Could see potentially a warning issued there. Looks like a little disturbance moves through, but for most, it's very dry. A few showers around through Friday morning, but you see most, lots of clear blue, crisp winter sunshine, but temperatures hardly getting above freezing in quite a few areas. However, as we head into Saturday, weather front approaches from the southwest. This is this troublesome area of low pressure. Now it pushes into that very cold air, and we see snow widely on its northern and eastern edge, especially through southern England into the Midlands, Wales, parts of the Republic of Ireland. Significant snow. Again, wouldn't take the exact precipitation typing here too literally, but we'd expect inland, any hills, heavy snow would fall. Now, as this progresses, it does push slightly further northwards, but the UKV has it pivoting with the snow line pretty much on the M4, which I think at the moment is the southernmost of the majority of runs. Not seeing too many more further southwards than that, but we are seeing quite a few more towards the Midlands, maybe northern England, 50 to 100 miles further northwards. But as I said, the UKV here, very highly regarded model, and it probably and possibly could be correct here, but just not seeing too much support at this stage. You can see though, it slowly pivots and pulls away into Sunday morning. A bit of rain on its southern and eastern edge. Could be freezing rain. Again, we can't distinguish that on this chart, but we'll look at the temperatures in a minute. And definitely surface temperatures still close to freezing in these areas, so I wouldn't be surprised to get wintry mix, a bit of rain, icy rain, sleet mixing in, for all pulls away as heavy snow into Monday morning. So a good 24 to 36 hours of wintry precipitation. And again, don't take these too literally. Snow depths showing quite widely between 5 and up to 30 or 40 centimetres of snow. Again, mostly over hills and higher ground because of the marginality with the upper air temperatures shifting, but this is a lot of snow for the UKV, which is normally pretty pessimistic with its snow depth totals. So very interesting. You can see again, it's that M4 line northwards, but other runs have this big cluster of significant snow more towards northern England, the North Midlands, or even up towards southern Scotland. So very interesting there. And you can see it's all because of the collision of air masses. You see very cold air is pushed in at by this stage. And then it's where this line occurs. Where does it go from above freezing to below freezing? In a very marginal scenario like this, as long as the upper air temperatures are below freezing, as long as the dew point is below freezing, even if it's only -2 or -3, because the surface temperatures are still very cold, we still would see snow. And that's why it's right along the M4 where that dividing line sets up through the early hours of Sunday. That milder air doesn't make much inroads northwards. It pulls away and the exceptionally cold air floods back in. You can see the dew points. Look at the collision in dew points here. 12 degrees towards the far south coast. 50 miles northwards, it's 0. That 12 degree shift in dew points is ridiculous. Just showing you how intense the precipitation will be, as it is a very stark weather front, very stark warm front trying to push in. But it also shows you how a subtle shift in the positioning of this low will make all the difference. And I keep emphasising that because I know there will get a situation this weekend where areas that have forecasted snow will see rain, and areas that might be forecasted rain see snow. And I'm just trying to prepare you for the fact that no one is going to be able to predict this 100%. Even the Met Office will not predict this to 100% because of how uncertain this is. Even if all the models agree within the next 24 hours, I still wouldn't 100% believe them just because of how subtle shifts could be in these sort of scenarios. Again, historically, we have seen these sort of low pressure systems that push in and pull away trend southwards in the day or two before the event, i.e. maybe Thursday, Friday. But we have seen shifts northwards from some of the runs in the last day. So again, that might not occur. Essentially, I think this is going to be a nowcast situation where we will not know exactly where that snow line does develop until the weekend, until it actually occurs. So that's why anywhere within that yellow warning zone should be prepared for significant snow, for 5-10 centimetres, low-lying areas, 20-30 centimetres for higher ground. And it's even more stark if you look at the temperatures. You can see through the afternoon, it's down to the mid-single digits at best. And then as we head into Thursday, widespread frost for many northern and western areas. The far east and southeast may just stay away with a bit of cloud and milder air. But by the afternoon, temperatures not much above 1, 2, 3, maybe at best 4. But many areas well below freezing. As soon as sun sets, it is well below freezing. And then for Friday morning, widely -3 to -5 or even colder. And by Friday afternoon, not getting much above again, 2 to 4 degrees. And then Saturday, as that snow approaches, temperatures well below freezing, of course, and they cool down as that weather front approaches. And again, if we look at Sunday morning, the far south coast, 10, 12 degrees, 50 miles northwards, still at freezing. And even when those upper air temperatures do rise a little bit, you can still see the temperatures are well close towards freezing. So that's why I think there is also a significant risk of freezing rain mixing in there. It's such a marginal event, this. It's going to be so difficult to say exactly what we'll see. But you can see it is exceptionally cold across central England where this precipitation does push in. Now, do move over to the GFS, which was one of the most southerly trended runs over the last couple of days, and now it's trending much further northward. So GFS has been fairly good, but it is still a little bit all over the place. Not major consistency within the positioning of this low at this time frame. You can see the low approaches as we head into Saturday, and it does push in and then gets pushed away. And you can see it tracks across kind of central southern England. Beyond that, we do see a very cold northeasterly wind push in, but again, I wouldn't look at this with too much detail because it all depends on how the low develops to our east. And if we can't even forecast its exact track yet, exact positioning, the warm front, the cold front, then we're not going to be able to say what's going to happen beyond that with much detail either. So we do think we're going to get to this stage, northeasterly winds pushing back in for much of next week, but exactly what that entails and how long it lasts, beyond that, a lot of uncertainty. GFS, though, continues to try and build high pressure in. Eventually, though, towards the middle of the month, we see a lack of that, and eventually high pressure just builds in across us with a bit of an easterly flow. Could turn a bit colder, but we're not likely to see much snow beyond that. If you do check out the GFS run here, though, looking at the precipitation through the weekend, you can see the precipitation arriving through Saturday. Heavy snow, very similar position to the UKV, but more importantly, the weather front pushes in further. The low pressure system's further northwards. So where all that heavy snow is across the Midlands, maybe M4 line, it's now Midlands, Northern England, maybe even touching southern Scotland, pulling away and pushing in heavy snow once again at the back edge for most. But the significant snow here would be across the Midlands and Northern England, not the Midlands, and potentially southern England. So GFS is almost on the northern end of the spectrum, whereas the UKV was on the southern end, with many runs kind of in between. So regardless, it is still significant snow in quite a few areas. We'd still be looking at 20, 30 centimetres and perhaps some further snow beyond that. But it is quite a lot further northwards, and we can see that emphasised here by looking at those snow depth. Potentially a bit of snow in the far south through Saturday and Sunday, but it really totals across North Wales, North Midlands, Northern England and southern Scotland. That's where we're expecting the most amount of snow before it eventually pulls away and we could see further snow elsewhere. Now do check out the GM, which has been, again, like the GFS, a bit all over the place, but even more all over the place if we're being completely honest. It is showing a scenario that I think is pretty unrealistic, and it tracks the low through Scotland, or at least southern Scotland. Now this sort of scenario was peddled by the ECMWF over the last couple of days, but it has disappeared from the model output from the majority of runs. But today it is in the GEM, so don't know what to really take from that, and it breaks down the high pressure towards Greenland much faster and actually builds a Scandinavian high with colder easterly winds. But if we do look at the precipitation here, you can see it pushes in, heavy snow initially on its leading edge, but then the heavy snow is confined really just to Scotland, with us all in the milder air. Now I suspect this is one of the mildest scenarios. You can see, if we put on the upper air temperatures, how much milder air is pushing in. The cold air only actually remains for Scotland before coming back in for all beyond that. So yeah, GM a little bit confusing. This is definitely putting a bit of doubt in our minds, because with these sort of scenarios still being put out, yeah, looks like there is still a couple hundred miles uncertainty within some of these runs. Now, so the ECMWF has been one that's been probably the most consistent, with a sort of Midlands, Northern England track, all roughly around there being pedalled in the last few runs, pretty consistently, if we're being honest. So although the ECMWF perhaps isn't giving heavy snow in the south, isn't giving heavy snow perhaps in Scotland, it has been consistent. So that's one thing I will take from this run. You can see low pressure system approaches, and again it kind of tracks through the Midlands, Northern England, clears away quite quickly, and we do see those northeasterly winds and potentially more areas of snow pushing in from the far south. If you look at WX charts into the weekend, heavy snow moving in for most areas, and then eventually it really sits across northern England and southern Scotland. So it is pretty far north, maybe not of course as quite far north as the GM, but still much further northwards than the UKV, which had this down here towards Cardiff and London and Birmingham, that sort of region. It is a couple hundred miles further northwards. So we are starting to refine what we think. We've got no more of these runs that are off the south coast down into France. We've got no more runs that are kind of northern Scotland. But we are seeing a whole array from southern Scotland to southern England still. And I do think it will continue to be confined over the next 24 hours. And I do think there will be some sort of consensus through Friday. But as I said, when we looked at the UKV, I do think this is going to be a nowcast, but I think there will be probably about 50 miles of uncertainty on the day where we just have to watch the live radar and see where those cold air masses do end up. Now, to finish by looking at the ensembles, of course, the ensembles don't tell the full picture because we know that because of the very cold air at the surface, even the GFS run here would be producing some freezing rain potentially towards London. But you can still see the GFS ensembles, there are still runs that keep the -5 line in for London. Others, and still probably half, keep us around freezing or below freezing, which would still be cold enough for at least a wintry mix or a bit of snow. And then you can see there are still probably about half that go above freezing toward that 5-degree mark, which is that milder air pushing in. After that, though, we do see we go back to another 3, 4, 5 days, very cold conditions. And again, there's loads of scatter beyond that, or how long that cold will last. But we are expecting quite a lot of snow in some areas here. And you can see even the GFS ensemble is still clustering a lot of snow. Quite a few are producing at least 5 centimetres. Some you can see are getting into the tens of centimetres. Again, those will be the coldest runs. Most, though, as I said, will be producing some snow, but it'll be much more in the way of mixing, especially Sunday through to Monday. 2 metre temperatures are all over the place. Some still low single digits, others 12 degrees. So yeah, massive contrast. And again, that 12 degrees is what we saw on the far south coast on the UKV. So it's 50 miles, 100 miles further northwards on some of these GFS runs. But you can see it is preceded by and followed by exceptionally cold conditions. And that looks like pretty concrete at this stage. The uncertainty really is on that low through the weekend. If we finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, broadly it is very similar. Perhaps more consistency with that milder spike. It is a bit of a smaller spike perhaps in the GFS, so a bit more clustering around about a 12 to 18 hour spell of milder air, and then it drops back down to very cold conditions once again. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Wouldn't be surprised if this trended much further southwards. I would be surprised if it trended massively northwards, because we haven't seen too many runs there. It has been a kind of a battle between, will it be in the Channel, southern England, or will it be northern England, southern Scotland? That's kind of the northern and southern extent I'm seeing at the moment. So I think anywhere in between. Wouldn't be surprised if we get consensus somewhere across the Midlands, northern England, and it ends up being further southwards. I am being completely honest, it is going to be a nowcast situation. But regardless, whatever happens with this low, significant snow will be seen somewhere. That looks pretty much guaranteed, unless we can see a complete model flop. It looks like significant snow is guaranteed somewhere, and very cold conditions for all will proceed and come after this big snow event. We'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully a bit more of a concrete answer tomorrow, and hopefully we see again updates in those warnings. But we do now have warnings for that significant snow, and you'll have to wait and see exactly where it does end up. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.